The 10-minute drill.
This is a big one.
Covered by Universal Roof and Contracting. The difference is universal.
On 1010XL.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hit it.
All right, we're back on the Custom Tree Surgeons Thursday. We're going to hit the highlights and the headlines with our 10-minute drill coming up. And stick around for that. We got Doc Kevin Murphy this hour, the coronavirus, how it affects the sports world, certainly a part of that conversation. Hick, before we get going on the drill, though, I always enjoyed Udonis Haslem. Haslem started his high school career in Jacksonville and at Wolfson High School, and he must have been a news watcher because I was still relatively new to town and new to the air. But, you know, he went to Miami from there, then started at Florida, and Udonis Haslem, it was one of those weird deals. Maybe you've had this with an athlete who feels like he knows you more than you think he should. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like recognize, like, I don't know, it feels like we went way back, even though I only dealt with him very, 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 if at all, when I was here. But so Haslem is in Miami, where he's played many, many years for the Miami Heat. He's a Miami native as far as he went to high school, and he's about had it with the Spring Breakers and coronavirus, Dan.
Okay.
Pinning for the players, what's it called, Players Journal?
The Players Tribune.
Yeah. And, of course, this is on the heels of, you know, that idiot down there, if I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it, right? So Haslem said this ain't your bleeping breach, bruh. This is not your spring break. This bleep is real life, and come to think of it, it's more than that. This bleep is life and death. I'll tell you one thing for sure. Those kids have never been hungry a day in their life. They never had to worry about nothing more serious than a pop quiz, but they're still coming down here, coming to our stats in the middle of a pandemic, acting like nothing's going on. And then he concluded this virus is going to affect everybody, especially the most vulnerable. So if you got a nice, stable environment, keep your ass home. If you got a roof over your head, keep your ass home. If you got a crib with Netflix and a refrigerator full of food, keep your A home. So there you go. Udonis has spoken, Hick. My favorite Udonis story, he was good buddies with Mike Miller. They were on that same class. Mm-hmm. Mike Miller had problems with a Gator football player. Mm-hmm. And let's just say Udonis Haslem walked with Mike Miller over to said football player's apartment, knocked on the door, and that was the end of Mike Miller's problems with the Gator football player.
I like
it that way.
I like it. And then that football player was cut because he couldn't handle the basketball guys.
Maybe, and that may be accurate. Although Udonis Haslem is one
big dude,
big old basketball dude. He was a big, tough, good player, right?
From Tom Brady to Nick Foles, how the NFL's new starting quarterbacks stack up. It's one of the talkers on ESPN, and obviously Tom Brady with Tampa Bay would be the guy that everybody's going to talk about. We'll get to him later. Teddy Bridgewater goes to Carolina. And then Phillip Rivers to the Indianapolis Colts. Tyrod Taylor looks like right now with the Chargers, although I still think they'll draft one. So then they ask the question, is he the new starter? That remains to be determined. They say about Tyrod. Jarrett Stidham of New England, is he the new starter? Well, he's the odds-on favorite, given the two notable factors, back up to Tom Brady in 2019 and a higher upside than the other two options, Brian Hoyer and Cody Kessler. I'm going to say this. I'll go on record right now. With all nice kid, Cody Kessler. That guy's not an NFL starting quarterback. He's just not.
Well, if you can't start for the Jaguars,
not
Nick,
in any way, shape, or form should Cody Kessler be a starting NFL quarterback. So, but the interesting one to me is, of course, Nick Foles. Is he the starter? Not yet. Bears are expected to have some sort of competition between Foles and Trubisky. But Chicago did inherit the final 3 years of the contract, $21 million guaranteed. The Bears and Foles restructured so Foles can void either of the final 2 years. Is he an upgrade? The answer is probably. Trubisky is much younger, but the former second overall pick was 28th in total QBR in 2019. Foles has deep ties to Chicago's staff, including the head coach. The writing is on the wall now. What great question. No telling when NFL players will reconvene. And it further illustrates the rest of the league and what they think of Nick Foles versus what folks down here think of Nick Foles, because it didn't go very well here, obviously. But, and there's also comments like, I guarantee you he has a chip on his shoulder. He's ready to prove, yeah, and he did when he got here. He had the keys to an NFL team handed to him down here as well. Let's not forget that. Unfortunately, he got injured, but that's been an unfortunate part of his career.
Imagine if Gardner Minshew had played like Tanner Lee or Brandon Allen or any of the other the 6th round do-nothing quarterbacks the Jaguars have drafted in their history. If he'd have come in and played like, say, Cody Kessler did the year before, Nick Foles might still be here. Mm-hmm. You know, that what makes the Jaguars fan base, you know, such a non-believer in Nick Foles is that Gardner Minshew was able to go 6-6. If Gardner Minshew had gone 3-9 in his stead, who knows where we'd be right now.
Lewis Riddick says Nick Foles is motivated, man. He hears what people says. Yeah. He hears what people say, that he's just a great sixth man, that he can do it in spurts and he can't really do it over the long haul. Well, yeah, because he has not yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's injury prone, which leads me to the Jaguars' latest free agent signee. Dan, I really simmered on this Tyler Eifert thing over the night, and I know that this thing's now going to be shaded by the narrative. If it's incentive laden, it's not guaranteed. That's fine. I still haven't seen the exact layout. I don't know how you could create a contract with a ceiling of $7.5 million for Tyler Eifert, who's literally missed like 60 games in his brief career, who is an unproductive tight end, who last year was 23rd in the NFL in tight end receiving yards, and he played the whole season. And you do it in an offseason where you have to completely rearrange your roster, not based on talent, not based on players' resumes, but based on their salaries. This is maybe, again, I'm going to attach it to being worth $7.5 million, because for now, that's what is out there.
Well, I did some research on it.
You know the specifics?
I don't know the specifics, but I do know it's more of like a one-year deal, and I do know it's definitely incentive laden. So I'm not as harsh on it. As you,
I think the cap applies to the incentives. No,
I did not hear great things about Eric Ebron when I asked around. So, you know, it is what it is. But it's not a knockout punch or anything, and it's not like people aren't sitting there guffawing at the Jags for this deal. It's not. I don't think. I agree with you. I was like, why would you give this guy 2 years, $15.5 million, or even
seventh highest paid tight end in the league? Dan.
Yeah,
7th highest.
But
and by the way,
here's
another.
That's just again, those aren't real numbers. So
well, they are if he hits his incentives.
Well, then that's good. If he hits his incentives, then hallelujah.
Here's the problem. No, here's the problem, Hick.
Yeah.
Because of his age and where this team is. No, it's not. Who cares if he hits his incentives?
Okay, so then well, then you'd rather tank then don't sign it. No.
I'd not rather tank. But if Tyler Eifert hits his incentives, this team's not. It's not going to be a game changer for this football team. It's just a reality of where they are. I'm not saying that you tank. I mean, draft a guy or find someone on your roster. Look, they needed Tyler Eifert 2 years ago, right? They haven't had any consistent tight end play, or even going into last year, or at least somebody who had that kind of ceiling that Eifert has had from. Well, really 1 year. You know, he's had 1 year. But regardless, because salary has been the motivating factor for every move you've made this offseason and again, okay, whatever the ceiling is, but and here's another deal with the tight end position. Nick, I was thinking about this. The glory days of tight end have come and gone. It's not the position that it once was. There's not 12 tight ends out there catching 80 balls and 800 to 1,200 yards. Gronkowski and Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez and Witten in his prime and Dallas Clark, and just go down the line. That it's right now it's Travis Kelce and it's George Kittle. I mean, and Mark Andrews makes plays and Ertz still makes plays and Waller has a lot of potential, but it's not this. It's not this guaranteed and to keep up with the Joneses necessary weapon that it was even 10 years ago.
Well, then that would further add to the Eifert narrative, because by all accounts he's a very good blocker. Which again, it doesn't excite me. I understand what you're saying, but I just don't think it's as big a deal as you're portraying it to be, because of the incentives. And again, if he does, I mean, I don't care. I'll gladly pay the guy. You got to pay somebody. Look, the Jags have stripped themselves down a little bit here. They've got some wiggle room here to do some things. And if Tyler Eifert exceeds, he will help this team. Now, again, let's be clear. The ceiling on this team, most of us would agree, is not very high at all. I mean, we're talking Vegas says, 5.5? This is pre-draft, but 5.5. The Jags do have 12 draft picks, so remains to be seen. Nothing would surprise me on draft night with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Nothing. I would not even be surprised anymore if they turned around and packaged up to get a quarterback if they thought that. We're starting to kind of get an idea of what they think. We'll start to get an idea of what they think of Gardner Minshew. And again, it's only been 1 year. I think with Minshew, you got to find out. The numbers were undeniable. He was good. He wasn't great, but he was good, and he threw 21 touchdowns and 3,200 passing yards and only 6 picks, which is a really interesting thing. But he did have the ball knocked out of his hands 13 times. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you one other interesting thing about Gardner Minshew is unlike Blake Bortles, who got all of his production in the fourth quarter with meaningless scores in games they were out of, Gardner Minshew got a lot of his production in the fourth quarter, but it came when the team was trailing and they needed a drive and a score. That's another aspect to Gardner Minshew. The guy must have had 2 or 3 fourth-quarter comebacks, Hick.
That's correct. That's correct.
Did Blake have 3 or 4 his whole career? I mean, fourth-quarter comebacks don't grow on trees. That's also another little now, you got to do that for more than, 3/4 of a season like you did last year. But I'm encouraged by Minshew, or at least seeing where we're at. And that's why, again, I'm going to pull my hair out if they take Jordan Love, number 20. I'm going to pull it out. Why do we need another first-round young quarterback who, by the way, is a project at best? Why? I've seen some of the mock drafts, Hick, give us Jordan Love, the Utah State quarterback, at number 9.
Well, I would say this, as to play devil's advocate, what if he's better? That's why. I mean, we've always advocated trying to get better at the quarterback position. If Jordan Love is Carson Wentz,
well, then he'd go number 2.
Then you go get Jordan Love. Well,
yeah,
Jordan Love, the reason why Jordan Love has fallen is because he didn't have as great a last year as he had the year previous, but there were a lot of mitigating circumstances. So
I get
it. I'm not sitting here saying draft Jordan Love, but I'm not. You gotta. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Again, my directive would be do opposite of do Seinfeld. Do opposite.
I mean, if you're looking for a franchise if you're looking for a franchise quarterback, then go sign Cam or James.
If you're sitting there and you think you should take Derek Brown, take Javon Kinlaw. If you're sitting there thinking you should take Jerry Jeudy, take Henry Ruggs. See how that works.
Oh,
but again, with 12 picks, I mean, if you can just hit on 5 of them, and I mean hit on them, but, easier said than done. I mean, if we sit here in 3 years and we go through these 12 picks, and again, part of the deal, too, for the Jags have finally admitted to themselves they got to get the right kind of player as well. They can't just get guys who are super talented but are just awful off the field. And so, if you got to clear those types of guys out, you got to clear those types of guys out. Now, certainly Calais Campbell and A.J. Boye weren't those two types of guys. They were on the other side, but and losing those guys will hurt. But that's an admittance to we're not doing anything this year.
And see, well, that's my point, though, Hick. Go find me a veteran tight end, whoever's left, and pay him $2.5 million, and let's keep A.J. Boye with that other $4 million a year that is going to the salary cap at the tight end position.
Yeah,
that would be a practical example of why it just doesn't make sense. I could embrace what the Jags had done this offseason. I mean, Schobert is the only one you could argue got overpaid, but he's a much more sustainable player, much more proven than Eifert is. And the whole way they've been shedding salary and good players because of how much they make. And then you, at the end of the day, here at the end of the turn, and again, to the salary cap, $7.5 million to a tight end who's been unproductive and unhealthy is just bizarre to me. But
all right, let's do beef. Do we have a giveaway today?
We do, Dan.
What do we got?
I'm going to bracket update, too, here. Where are we at in this first-round matchup?
We're
matchup
battling.
Of the day.
We're going to give away one. Lucky Guga's going to take home $25 to use for some convenient takeout from our friends at Woody's Barbecue.
Okay, so I ordered out last night, had him deliver. It was great, and I felt, I tried to do that a little bit here to try to help out, and, our poor friends at the restaurants are really struggling. So
did you call Boober Eats?
I did not call Boober Eats, but I told BWR about Boober Eats, and I suggested that I would answer the door if Boober Eats did come, and she just shook her head and walked away.
She said, "Who are you?
We have an upset brewing. The 10-seed roller coaster over TIAA, 57% of 117 votes right now. Bo versus Murphy swim off 42%. Yeah. It could be a 1-2 whammy on Big Bo.
I consider the roller coaster to be the higher seeded team there. If you ask me,
wow, there you go.
That's a bigger boy to me.
Let's do caller number.
It's a bit of a referendum on the big fella.
Yeah, let's do caller number 3, and then we'll come back and we'll talk to Doc Murphy because I do have some questions for him about how they're treating folks right now, especially considering, look, I'm out in the neighborhood right now working from home, and I'll get out and do a little bit lengthier walks. I have a lot of guests out there flying by me, running and jogging and walking and biking.
I think he has an update on that for Ortho Needs in this time because, they go non-essential. I saw your Mets are taking a bit of a beating for announcing that Noah Syndergaard has had surgery in this time where the narrative is that unless it's essential, you don't bother the hospitals and the doctors. So
we'll talk about that when we come back.
For sure. It's Custom Tree Surgeons Thursday. This is The Drill, 1010XL, 92.5 FM.